Welcome back, everyone. We are speaking about that disruption of peace that Adam and Eve faced in the garden, and we're looking at how this was reflected into the different aspects of their life. So the first thing was from Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. They lost internal peace within themselves. It says that they became ashamed. Adam and Eve became ashamed, and they started to cover themselves. The second is that it reflected into their environment, where once they were peacefully interacting with creation, now there was a little bit of pain and turmoil that was going to be part of their interaction. And the third thing we noticed is that inner loss of peace reflected in their relationship with each other. Adam immediately goes and says, well, no, Eve made me eat it. And then Eve says, well, no, the serpent made me eat it. And there's instant this taking the guilt that you feel and wanting to project it onto something else. The fourth thing I want to talk about is probably the saddest and the most hurtful loss that they must have gone through. And that's Genesis chapter 3, verse 8. I'm going to read from verse 8 all the way until verse 10. And then they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God said to Adam and called to Adam and said to him, "Where are you?" So he said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." That moment right there, when he says he was afraid and he went to hide, is really one of the most saddest moments that they experienced. Adam and Eve lived in complete peace, this beautiful, harmonious relationship, full of the fellowship of God, full of the communion of God, having a strong relationship with Him. But that introduction of sin changed everything that they had with God. That guilt of sin, becoming conscious of their sin, caused Adam and Eve to feel so uncomfortable in God's presence that they couldn't approach Him. They couldn't draw near to Him. Acts chapter 23, verse 1, it says, "Then Paul, looking earnestly at the council, said, 'Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day.'" And then in Acts chapter 24, verse 16, "This being so, I myself always strive to have a conscience without offense toward God and men." What is this conscience that Paul is speaking of? Well, it's that internal awareness. Just as we know if we have done something wrong against our parents, against our children, against our friend, against our sibling, just when you know you've done something wrong, instinctively we also are very aware when we've done something against God, just like Adam and Eve were. But having a good conscience means that you have this internal freedom, just like Adam and Eve had before they allowed sin to enter. They interacted with God, they had this communion with God, they had this fellowship with God, and they were free. And that's what that good conscience means, an internal freedom, when you know that God is not offended by our thoughts, our actions, our behaviors with other people. And you can be yourself in the presence of God without trying to hide yourself in the presence of God. However, when we defile that is when a major shift happens, just like we saw with Adam and Eve. As soon as they disobeyed what God said, and as soon as they went against what God had desired, they became so aware of it, and there was a major shift. Titus chapter 1, verse 16, it says, "They profess to know God, but in works they deny Him, being abominable, disobedient, and disqualified for every good work." We as carriers of the peace of God have to be super aware of what we do and how we carry the peace of God with us. We want to stand in front of God with a good conscience so we could boldly go before Him and just be unashamed of ourselves and just go right to Him and let the peace of God minister to us. The thing that stopped Adam and Eve from experiencing this daily was the sin that they allowed into their hearts. It really is one of the the hardest things, to feel as though you can't go to God. It really is one of the most disheartening things to feel like you can't be in his presence. And I pray that each and every one of us daily, we ask God to give us that internal awareness and give us a good conscience so that we can go to him however we may be, knowing that he accepts us. I'll see you tomorrow as we continue our conversation. God bless you.